بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Our topic today will be about defining and refining the problem statement. Let, let us share our screen. This is part one of topic 6, which we are going to define and refine the problem statement of any project. The first steps in the research process. Three important first steps in the research process are as listed in the following diagram, which are step 1, identification of the broad management problem, step 2, preliminary research, and step 3, definition of the problem research. You have to note that this process is not linear. This means that in the beginning of our project, we will have to move back and forth between preliminary research and defining and refining the problem till we reach the exact definition of the research problem. Let us start with the broad problem area. A problem means any situation where a gap exists between an actual and a desired ideal state, or something that hinders the success of a given activity. The main sources of problems in organizations are problems currently existing in an organization settings that need to be solved, or areas that a manager believes needs to be improved in the organization, the improvements, and a conceptual or theoretical issue that need to be tightened up for the basic researcher to understand certain phenomena, or some research questions that a basic researcher wants to answer empirically. Meanwhile, a symptom or symptoms are conditions produced by the problem and call the manager attention, indicate signaling that there is a challenge in a given department. Let us now distinguish between problems and symptoms. The problem causes the symptoms and not vice versa. When the problem is corrected, the symptoms will cease, but not vice versa also. Also, symptoms always call the manager attentions and not the problem itself. Here are some examples of problems or symptoms. Let us see. Employees' low level of commitment to the organization, declining profit, staff turnover and is higher than anticipated, and so forth. Are these problems or symptoms? They are symptoms. They are symptoms that cause the manager attentions that there is a real problem here in this situation. So these problems provide us with enough information to embark the research journey. Much work is needed to translate the broad problem into a visible research topic. Therefore, we need to transform the broad problem into a visible topic for research. How? By making it more specific and precise. Then we cannot conduct a research about the broad problem. We need a precise problem to conduct a research, setting clear boundaries of the research, selecting a perspective from which we investigate the subject. Where transforming the broad problem into a visible topic needs preliminary information gathering, or what's called preliminary research. This kind of research will help us to make the necessary transformation. As depicted in this diagram, preliminary research comes to be step 2 in the research process. This kind of researches should help us to find answers to questions such as, what is the problem? Precise problem. Why does the problem exist? Is the problem important? What are the benefits of solving such problem? The nature of information to be gathered in preliminary research are first, background information on the organization and its environment, which is information about the contextual factors of the organization. And the second type of information is information on the topic of interest. Therefore, we need to conduct background survey and literature review. Let us start with the background information on the organization. Background information include the contextual factors which may be obtained from various sources. These contextual factors include the origin and history of the company. As you see, we need information about the organization itself, such as the origin and history of the company, when it came into being, X business it is in, rate of growth, and so forth. Size in terms of employees, assets, or both. The organization charter, which includes the purpose and ideology of the organization. The location, whether it's a regional or national organization. A background about the organizational resources, such as the humans and the other resources. Independent relationship with other institutions and the external environment. Okay, financial position of the corporation in the 5 to 10 past years. Information on structural factors such as roles and positions in the organization and number of employees at each job level, and communication channel, control system, and workflow system. We need also information on the management philosophy. But what are the main sources of the organizational contextual information? Let us see. The main sources of contextual information are secondary data and primary data. Secondary data, which is data that have been collected by others for another purpose. Therefore, secondary data is data from the others. The main sources of the secondary data: statistical bulletins, government publications, published or unpublished information available from either within or outside the organization, company, website, the internet, and any other sources of data. The nature and value of the secondary data should be carefully evaluated before it's used, because we need to formulate a precise problem. The criteria for evaluating secondary data: timeliness of the data. The data we collect must be up to date. Accuracy of the data must be accurate and must be relevant to the organization. And the cost of the data, whether the cost is more or less than solving the problem. If the cost is more than the cost of solving the problem, then we do not need such a research. The other source of contextual information is primary data, which this type of data will be gathered by, for the first hand by the researcher himself. The main methods, as you know, of primary data collection are interviews, observations, questionnaires, and experiments. The other type of information we need is information on the topic or subject area, or we need to conduct a literature review, because it may help the researcher, or it may help us to think about better understanding of the problem and the current work. The literature review may help us to structure the research on the work already done, okay, and developing the problem statement with precision and clarity, and identifying and highlighting the important variables that are related to the problem. Literature sources. There are a lot of literature review sources, such as textbooks, journal articles, theses, conference proceedings, unpublished manuscripts, reports, in newspapers and the internet, and so forth. Literature review will be discussed later in the coming topic. Now, the third step of the preliminary research process, or at the early stage research process, is the definition of the research problem. After gathering the preliminary information, now we have good background about the research, and we have good literature about the research. The researcher is in a position to narrow down the problem from its original broad base and define the issue of concern more clearly. The problem statement introduces the key problem that is addressed in the research process. The problem statement must be clear and precise and must be short as possible. What makes a good research problem? Good research problem includes both research objectives and research questions. Even the research problem must include the research objectives and the research question, because they are strongly related. Yeah. Where the research objectives explain why the study is being done. The objectives should be brief and communicate clearly the focus of the project. Where the research questions specify what you want to learn about the topic, clarifies the issue to be resolved, guide and structure the process of collecting and analyzing information to help you to attain the purpose of your study. Assessing the quality of a problem statement. There are 3 criteria to assess the quality of a problem statement. First, the problem statement should be relevant. Second, it should be visible. Third, it must be interesting. Relevant means, from an academic perspective, when the research is relevant. The research is relevant if nothing is known about the topic. Much is known about the topic, but the knowledge is scattered. Or much research on the topic is available, but the results are contradictory. Or established relationships do not hold in certain situations. You will have to prove that your claim is right. You have to prove in the research that your research problem is relevant. Okay? Visibility. The ability of the researcher to answer the problem statement within the restrictions of the research project. These restrictions, as you know, are time, money, expertise of the researcher. What's the background of the researcher? Determines the visibility of his ability to conduct or to go further in the research. It's important that you develop a narrowly defined question that can be investigated with a reasonable amount, time, and researcher efforts. Okay, the research problem also must be interesting. You know, research is a time-consuming process, and you will go through many ups and downs before you present a final version of your report. Therefore, wait that you are interested in the problem statement that you are trying to answer so you can stay motivated throughout the entire process. Basic types of questions. First, exploratory research questions. Second, descriptive research question. Third, causal research questions. Where the exploratory research questions are typically developed when not much is known about particular phenomena, or existing research results are unclear or suffer from serious limitations, or the topic is highly complex, or there is not enough theory available to guide the development of a theoretical framework. Exploratory research often relies on a quantitative approach to data gathering, such as informal discussions with consumers, employees, and so forth. In such cases, we need to conduct an exploratory, we have to begin with an exploratory research. The other type of research questions are called descriptive research. Descriptive research is either quantitative or qualitative in nature. The objectives of conducting a descriptive research is to obtain data that describes the topic of interest, and so forth, as mentioned, such as collect data that describe characteristics of objects or find the associations among variables that describe populations, events, or solutions and situations. The third type is called causal research questions. Causal researchers test whether or not one variable causes another variable to change. The intention of the researcher conducting a causal study is to be able to state that variable X causes variable Y. So when variable X is removed or altered or changed in some way, variable Y is solved. And typical example of causal research as you see, like what is the effect or what is the impact or how or and so forth. The researcher what's the difference between these three types of researches: exploratory research, descriptive research, and causal research. The answer is the researcher conducts exploratory research before moving to descriptive or causal studies to develop a thorough understanding of the phenomenon under study. The three types of research, exploratory, descriptive, and causal, are often viewed as building blocks. This means that exploratory research lays the foundation for descriptive research, and causal research builds on descriptive research. This is the end of this topic. Thank you. Thank you very much. See you again in